Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Communal Table Talks. This is the first of our series of 30-minute talks that we'll be doing once a month. And we're here to talk about the humane factor, moving beyond surfaces to evolve restaurants. So I'm here with Carlo Ciampoli and Bradford Thompson. And I think you read a little bit about all of us in the little slideshow in the beginning. I met Bradford about 100 years ago in New York City. It was actually towards the end of towards the turn of the century.
Wow.
Bradford was an executive sous chef at the restaurant Danielle, and I spent a year there writing a book, so got to know him and many other people really well, doing my sort of fly on the wall reporting. And and Carlo and I met about 2 or 3 years ago on a very interesting international food hall project in Orange County, California. And then we became good friends, and we started talking about, in July, about evolving restaurants and how, we started meeting once a week for video chats and just, talked about different aspects of restaurants and how they might evolve. And so thought it would be interesting to, it was always so engaging and so inspiring that we thought it'd be really cool to just kind of open it up to the whole broader community. And so today we're just going to sort of set the stage, talk about what is a human restaurant, and we'll all talk. And there's, on the right, you can enter your comments. And if you have an actual question to ask, and we hope that you have many comments and questions because we'd love to get to them towards the end. There's a little button at the bottom that says ask a question. So you can type your questions in there. And, we're not here to sell you anything. We just want to have a really good conversation that we'd love to keep going for many months. And in the episodes that follow, we will, for some or all of them, we'd like to invite different guests from various sort of parts of the restaurant and related worlds to be, our guests here on the stage, as it were. So, with that, I think, we started talking because, COVID is very real, but we know, and it really started our conversation, but obviously, and a lot of people have talked and written about this, it exposed cracks in a system that really could use some thoughtful consideration going forward. So what is a human restaurant? What's a humane restaurant? I don't know, Carlo, I know, as a person who designs spaces, I know you think a lot about, how does that work in the kind of restaurant space and the way people, humans interact in them?
Absolutely. Leslie, I'm so kind of thrilled to be here. And as always, I can, like to have some images. And, it's when we start talking about how to evolve restaurants, we start, thinking about, the restaurant of the future. And, we start talking about, flying cars and flying cars driving. And I think that it was, mostly a reaction to the current situation, try to go really in the future. And so, these images and of, futuristic spaces that are super efficient, where kind of safety, maybe even automation would kind of, rule the world. Where we started, thinking about, touch-free spaces. And obviously, talking about technology, that's been like something. There's always a problem that can be solved with technology, right? Nowadays we think that we can solve everything with technology, and we think that there is a place to use technology within the restaurant, especially to really think about the before, during, and after experience that every customer has. And of course, talking in the midst of a pandemic, we've been researching millions of solutions that brilliant designers worldwide put forward to really call and neutralize the risks and fears of the situations that we're in right now. But one thing that we've been going back to over and over is that COVID is temporary, obviously, but this really unique historic happening really kind of underlined some problems, amplified some issues that have been in the restaurant business for a long time. And what we've been always coming back to, it's humans. And when we talk about humans, we talk about people that work in the restaurant, people that own the restaurant. And of course, we're talking about people that go to the restaurant, customers, our beloved customers. And we know that one of the innate desires of people going to restaurants is to connect. It's to connect to each other, and we think that this longing for connection, it's going to be hyper amplified by this kind of big pause that we're in. And we also think that restaurants are going to be places where you can go to find community. So going beyond your little kind of spheres of friends, but just a place where you feel you belong. And when you think about belonging and going kind of beyond the four walls of the restaurant, definitely culture, it's something that really kind of people aspire to kind of connect to feel that they're choosing to sit at the specific restaurant underlines a desire to be connected to something bigger. Of course, we're not talking about retail or airports, we're talking about restaurants. So food, it's at the center at everything that we do. And I think that this is no news to anybody, but the idea that customers now are so much more interested in really knowing about food, but about where the food comes from, how it's grown or raised, who's doing the work. And I think that one important aspect of the future of restaurants are portals towards those stories, are portals that allow people to really understand how food is important, they understand our land, and in doing so, being able to kind of care more about it. And talking about stories, we think that restaurant can really expand their offering, their operation models, really amplifying stories and connecting to other brands. So that every time that you choose to go to a specific place, it's a lifestyle choice. It's not just a random one. And one of the themes that we're gonna explore much more in detail in following talks is the theme of flexibility in space and time. We think that the restaurant have been pretty static for a long time, but it is time to really kind of meet the customer where they want to be met and when they want to be met. And so the idea that the restaurant can be physically reconfigured and allows to kind of add a lot of the kind of new offerings that for sure is going to make the operational model slightly more complicated to kind of understand and implement, but definitely it's going to result in people coming back over and over, because that is a place that has always something for you at every time of the day. And definitely, I think that there is a lot that can be done, and we again discuss, and you'll hear from us, more and more what can be done to evolve restaurants into the future, to make them more human and humane. And our approach is extremely respectful. Obviously, there have been a lot of people before us. We stand on the shoulders of the knowledge and the lesson and the experiences of so many people, talented designers, critics, chefs. But at the same time, we know that there is a lot that can be done. And with the utmost respect, we have no fear of breaking few tables and chairs and dogmas, maybe in the meanwhile, in the process. So, Brad, what do you think it's a human and humane restaurant? How we can move forward?
Yeah, thank you, Carlo. I just having these conversations. I love the way you think. When you talk about design and when you look at spaces, they're not just a physical space that you're designing and then it's in your portfolio and then you kind of move on. You're really thinking about how people are going to move and live and interact in the space, and I think that's very important going forward. Talking to you two has been, I've said it before, it's been therapeutic through this process, just because so much stuff has come up. The beginning of COVID was just, oh my God, how are we going to deal? And, like you said, it was shields and sanitizer and all these things. And then the reality set in that this was going to be a long-term proposition that we would have to figure out and navigate. And there was a lot of talk early on about back to normal and reopening. And I think after a short period of time, my mentality has been, and we've talked about this, is not to reopen, but to reset and take this opportunity to look at what's not working and why. I think back on my career a lot and look at the places that I've been fortunate to work and the talented people I've worked with. And then I also think about a lot of the bad behavior that there's probably some people on this call that spend time with me in a kitchen that can attest or tell some stories. And I could certainly tell many stories. And Leslie, you were able to see behind the scenes for a year of a very high profile, high pressure environment. And we've sort of always, as chefs and managers, we've always said, well, that's the way the business is. I got my ass kicked growing up. I'm going to pass it on to the next guy. And we never stopped to say, let me break that cycle. Keep the knowledge and the food and the service training, passing that on. But at some point, we have to break the cycle. And unfortunately, it's been a painful way to do it. But it's really made us reevaluate. And, I think back to the Ritz-Carlton, and when I worked at Starwood, there was always like the 10 points and the 10 things to live by. And number one was always, surprisingly, was take care of the employees first. And a lot of people come into the industry thinking take care of your guests, and that's the most important. But if you truly take care of your employees and create an environment of trust and of transparency and safety, that they'll then be comfortable to take care of the guests for you. And, obviously safety means something quite different now, physically, but in general, like having this environment where people feel the trust. And the other thing they want to feel is they want to feel heard and seen and participate. And I think it's, especially high-end kitchens have always been this hierarchy. Do what I say. I'm the chef, shut your mouth. And there'll be some collaboration maybe on the side. But I think really moving forward, how do we embrace, the community of ourselves and looking out for each other and meeting vendors and meeting people that grow our food and the florist and everybody involved in the restaurant. The long-term success of a restaurant involves a lot more than just the cooks and the servers and the managers. There's a lot of people affected. And, I just think it's time for us. And when I say us, I'm speaking probably more as a chef, but to stand up and say, enough's enough. Let's admit the things that are wrong. Let's address the things that we haven't talked about because the economy was good for a long time. And let's look at how we can kind of move forward. And, Carlo, like I said, I think we've lifted the curtain maybe a little too much for you as to the.
It's been fun. It's been fun.
But I think the thing that keeps coming up in my mind talking about this is human capital. And that, loosely defined as the experiences and the points of view and the perspective that people bring to a group. And I think we need to embrace that more from, every employee. What are you bringing to the group? And the sum of the parts becomes much greater when we embrace that and nurture that and create an environment where that's okay. So, so many things come up when we talk about human and humane. But for me, that's kind of the beginning of the conversation. And it really is about a personal responsibility to say, this is okay and this is not okay. And to be able to talk about it and work that out. And again, Leslie, you were able to see a lot of this, for better, for worse. And I'm just curious, like, because I go back and I'll read parts of the book, or I have my kids reading it now, and read some of it and go, oh my God, that's really the environment we worked in. Or you'll write something that I said and I'll go, did I really say that? So I'm just interested, like, how you process that at the time, and how do you use that when you work with people and work with them towards opening?
Yeah, well, it was, Danielle is and was a very, formal, large, machine with, very sophisticated, with a lot of moving parts. And there's that sort of almost military, it's built on that kind of military structure. And we're all, I think, in this business talking a lot now about maybe doing away with some, and there was a reason for it. And there's a reason that the business evolved in that way. But at this point, I think, when we talk about like, what is a human restaurant, I think a human restaurant is, as you, Carlo, alluded to also, it's a restaurant for the people who work in the restaurant, and the people who own the restaurant, and the people who are served in the restaurant, and the people who run the restaurant, and the vendors, and everybody who has anything to do with the ecosystem. And so some of those people in the past had been, sort of their needs and their humanity had maybe been passed over. And so there's this whole notion of equity that I think has to be addressed again. And just a couple of thoughts. One is, I love the slide that Carlo showed of the elephant in the room, breaking things. And I do think we need to break a lot of shit to get somewhere like interesting and humane.
Right.
And it's funny because it reminded me of, we've just had New Year's, and a dear friend of mine, Michaeline, who is Italian-American, on the New Year's Eves I've spent with her in the past, it's her family's tradition to throw china out the window and smash it. And I don't know if that's Carlo, maybe you could tell us because you're Italian, but that's sort of what it feels like now. Like, let's break some stuff and start over.
Exactly.
And there's something kind of rejuvenative in that. And, and then I was also thinking about, the human restaurant, the humane restaurant. I was thinking about a restaurant that impressed me many years ago. And I'm just kind of astounded to think about that it opened 9 years ago, a restaurant in Houston called Oxheart, Chef Justin Yu's restaurant. And I think he actually might be with us here today. So hi, Justin, if you are. And it was really, really interesting because he broke down some of the barriers that we think about, like the front of the house and the back of the house, and that very strict divide. And so in that restaurant, the cooks would bring a dish out to a table, and there were no servers. The guests were sort of pointed to a drawer in the table, and they'd pull out that drawer and get their own, flatware and stuff like that. And there was something so like, we as diners are so used to be served. And there was something, and I know there's some resistance among a segment of diners who think that's the way it should be, but there's something really liberating about being part of the whole thing together that I think is going to be kind of a powerful part of the story.
Yeah. It's interesting you bring that up, because I think that's one. We have actually some good questions here. One of the things that I think we need to address while we have this opportunity is being more transparent with the dining public, because I think they've sort of leapfrogged in the last 20 years of, the knowledge and the expectation and knowledge of ingredients and knowing all the celebrity chefs and where they're cooking and everybody's style. They've become quite accustomed to access to everything. And that relationship is still pretty transactional, like you said. And I think that we need to kind of talk to the dining public a little bit more about what our true cost of dining is. And, are we paying our vendors a fair amount? Are the farmers being paid a fair amount for their ingredients to sustain and supply jobs? And is our staff making it, and I think this goes off on a tangent, but the entire gratuity system, we've, as owners, have kind of put the onus on diners to tip well enough so that the wait staff can make a living. Is that a broken system or not? It's what our system has become. So when we talk about, a fair living wage for everybody, or a national minimum wage, does that remove the gratuity, and put the onus back on the owners completely? And then how's the guest going to react? So I think the diners being, I hate to use the word educated to come across like that, but I think, the diners being told and being informed and being transparent with them, these are the costs of operating, and these are the costs of feeding people and taking care of a staff in a humane way. We need you to share in that. And I think people are really desperate to be back out around people, enjoying the community of a restaurant. And I just hope that we can get the message that, this isn't going to be back to normal necessarily, and there's a cost involved in it. And hopefully we can share in that cost a little bit more.
Yeah, I think, hi, Carlo, you're back. I think, I think those are really good points. And I can also imagine, I know there's a number of owners, including maybe Daniel Boulou might be with us, who are probably saying, yes, it does all need to be humane, but for it to be humane, the system also has to work better for owners, because the business model is going to have to be repaired,
right,
rethought, in order for owners to be able to, to pay a better wage, or to offer salary and benefits, and not have that situation where wait staff is reliant on gratuities, which is just so so terrible. It just doesn't work. So,
right.
And somebody like, and also Carlo had referred to, perhaps brand relationships and creating community partnerships. And actually Danielle has done some really, really interesting work in that regard, creating super interesting, very high level brand partnerships at his flagship restaurant, in a way that I think could probably be a model to a lot of people. I wonder if you guys don't mind, maybe we should get to some questions. What do you think?
Absolutely.
Let's see. Was COVID-19 the driving force that brought the three of you together, or were you all speaking prior to the pandemic? What is the vision and long-term goals from this team? Thank you. That's from Asdrid Azemi. Who wants to jump in with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Leslie, you and I certainly reconnected, I'll say because of COVID. Those first few months, there was a lot of reconnecting. And I actually came across your newsletter and Cooks Without Borders, and started reading your material again. I said, well, we haven't spoken in a while, and reached out. And it was funny because I guess it was a week later that you called me back and said, hey, I have this idea. I want to introduce you to my friend. Can we talk? And it was interesting how that just sort of happened. And these conversations got real deep real quick.
Absolutely. And I think that, do we have like a goal, a specific goal? I think that the first goal was to expand the conversation, to have as many people as possible, talk with us, and try to really rethink how, restaurant can work in the future. And I always kind of like to make up new words. Sorry, I'm trying also not to use restaurant as a word. I think place for food and community. It's what I'm kind of aiming for. I think that again, restaurant can be so much more than a place that you just go, sit, eat, and leave. And I think that again, involving everybody in the conversation is the only way to create a place that makes sense and is relevant for the future moving forward.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, let's see. In Reimagine, okay, this is from Michael Bonadis. In reimagining restaurants post-COVID, what do you break first and what do you keep? Oh my God, that's a great question.
Michael's always got great questions. I think we touched on one of the things I think to break is that steep divide. And listen, we've tried to do it for years, and I've worked on several openings where we've approached it, but breaking that divide between traditional front and back of the house. And I think that as the three of us talked, and Carlo, you presented these very open floor plan type of scenarios where it becomes physically easier to have staff that can do some food finishing and serve a guest, and cooks can go out and interact with guests. And it makes it such a more fluid experience where, oh, that's my busboy, that's my wine guy. Obviously in a more formal setting, that's a little harder. But I think for most scenarios, if we can sort of really work on breaking those barriers of front and back, and that would lead to discussions about sharing the gratuities and adjusting everybody's wages to a more equal point, and then sharing the gratuities with everyone. So everybody's very involved, engaged, and involved with the results of good service. So I think that's one of the things that I would look at, and I'll let you two go because there's probably quite a few more.
Well, Bradford, I think that one of the things that we talk about a lot, and I always kind of love this, was your kind of desire of when we talk about working in a restaurant, instead of saying, oh, you can't do anything else, just work in a restaurant, it's it should be more, oh my God, you work in a restaurant, you can do anything. And so the idea of kind of breaking those boundaries, the idea that people can be in the back, but need to learn how to be in the front too, and that,
right.
that kind of versatility. I think it's a kind of value added to the person first, and then to the restaurant. So that again, coming into that world can really kind of enrich you, personally and professionally.
Right.
So what do we keep? Which is the second part of the question. I think, I think we keep that sort of the sense of connection and the hospitality, but we have to be careful with hospitality, because hospitality, I think we don't want it to be at the expense of the people delivering the hospitality. So we have to kind of keep some sense of it, but redefine it. And I think what we don't want to do is get to a point where our places to eat look like those totally sterile, totally safe and sterile places that look like automats or, drive-through windows for banks. Sure, there's a need for that, but it's not what we're looking for when we go out for, a restaurant experience, that thing that we're all craving. I don't think we're all craving the sort of idea of taking something out of a sterile window. But so yeah, and then of course the food quality has to be about great food, and I think that's something that we're all.
And I think I'll add, I think we need to keep a hierarchy, but we just need to rethink what the hierarchy looks like, because there needs to be a vision. There needs to be a singular vision. We don't want 30 different visions and people all disjointed. So there needs to be a common thread that drives everything and draws everything together. It needs to look a little more of a flat pyramid than a steep pyramid, I guess I would say.
Yeah, and I'm guessing we'll dive into that question and probably a lot of others at our upcoming talks. And by the way, the next one will be this same time on February 22nd. So we'll send you notes about it and reminders and stuff like that. And our subject will be, drum roll please, flexibility.
Yes, I think this conversation will carry into flexibility as well.
Yeah. And I think we all have a lot to say and probably some cool visuals to show for that one. But let's see, it's 2:29 and
Can we squeeze one more in?
Yeah, is there anybody? Oh wait, is there one more question?
Let's do it, yeah.
Oh my goodness, I didn't see all these questions. Oh, well, let's see, that we just sort of answered that one. Do you intend to extend the renewed sense of humanity / community beyond your own restaurant? How can we compete less with other restaurants and collaborate more? I love that question.
That's a great point. Yeah. Some cities do that really well.
Yeah. How does New York City do that?
There's pockets that do it well, but I feel it in you know, like when I go to Houston, when I go to Austin, Charleston, there's Portland, Maine. There's some cities that really do a good job of sharing resources and supporting each other. And I think hopefully we're going to see more of that, just because that's what restaurant people do when things get hard. But yeah, there's certainly room for growth in working with other restaurants and thinking more like a community and less like competitors.
Yeah, I think, great question. Thank you. So we're going to keep to our very strict time schedule, just in respect of, thank you all for being here. We know you're super, super busy, and we don't want to keep you, and we appreciate your coming. We appreciate your great questions and comments, and we will get to the other ones that we didn't get a chance to address. We will follow up with an email. We'll send you maybe some interesting articles and links and images, and would love to hear about what you'd like addressed in future ones. So on that note, thank you.
And you can go to our Instagram and ask questions there as well.
Indeed.
Absolutely. And also, if you're interested in joining us in this conversation, let us know.
At Communal Table Talks is the Instagram. So ask questions there, and we'll certainly engage.
Oh, yay. Okay, perfect. Okay, well, thank you all so much for being here. Very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
We'll talk to you guys soon.
Bye.